Hello and welcome back to another video. My name is Charlie, and in today's video I'm going to be giving you 15 wedding tips to improve your photography and to hopefully get some new clients. So the first tip would be gear. So I use a Canon 5D Mark IV. For that I was shooting on a Nikon D3200. Now that was the first camera that I'd ever purchased, and at the time I think that was around about £200–300, but for me that was pretty much as much as I could afford to spend on a camera. So if you are starting out photographing weddings and it is your first year, then I do recommend investing in a decent camera, whether it be Nikon, Canon or Sony, but you need to make sure that the money you're spending on your gear matches up with the amount of money that you are planning to make. So if your target market is to focus on the cheaper end of weddings, whether that be £200 to £500, then you don't necessarily need to invest in the most expensive camera. If you're planning on photographing weddings £1,000 and upwards, then it would be really important for you to invest into better gear. Now you can rent gear. There are sites in the UK and places where you can spend sort of £50 to rent out a camera for the day. It depends if you're going to be shooting weddings on a regular basis or if it's just going to be part-time, so once a month, something like that. So for me, during my first year of wedding photography, my camera set me back £2,500, which at the time was quite a lot, but I knew this was something that I wanted to invest my money in and obviously invest a lot of my time in as well. So you need to weigh up how much money you have, the type of weddings that you are planning to photograph, and the amount of money that you think you're going to make, and if you are able to recover the costs of the gear itself. Number 2 will be backup. So it's important to not only have backup SD cards, backup lenses, but it's also important to have a backup camera as well. So I have a Canon as my main camera and then a Nikon as my backup camera. Your backup camera doesn't need to be the same as the main camera that you use, as long as it's capable of capturing high quality images. I've not had to use my backup camera as of yet. Fingers crossed that won't happen to me in the future, but if there was a time where I needed to use a backup, then I'm safe in the knowledge to know that I've got one with me. There have been times where I've run out of space on my SD card and I've had to just go into my bag and pull one out. So SD cards are probably the main thing that you need to remember, spare one of those. And obviously batteries as well, so it's important to bring 2, maybe 3 spare batteries, especially if you're shooting a full day's worth of photography. So tip number 3 would be to make sure that you value your client. So you want to make sure you're building a good rapport with the client and the couple. So you don't want to be treating them just as another number, you want to be treating them as if they're like your family. So making sure they're alright, making sure all the plans are okay for their wedding, keeping them up to date with what's going on, especially after having photographed their wedding, and to keep them updated on the editing process. So a lot of the time I will finish editing all the photographs and that will be uploaded onto that online gallery. So I'll give them a good few days to go over the photographs to see if there's any that they need changing or cropped in, or if there's some that are black and white and they want it to be in colour. All of the changes that I make to the online gallery will then obviously be implemented into the album. So they're not going to be receiving an album where there's photos in there that they don't like. But it's always good to include little gifts or messages, especially when you're sending over the content that you produced, and just to be nice and pleasant in the emails, really, to ask them how they are, how their day's been, and if they're excited for their wedding, all that sort of stuff. So tip number 4 would be to set realistic goals. So what I do every day in the morning, I write down 3 goals that I need to get done by the end of the day, and then anything else under that is just a bonus. By doing it day by day, you're going to keep ticking off things off your list, and then before you know it, you've reached the goals that you want to set out by the end of the month or the end of the week. But it's also important to set goals that sort of exceed your expectations, but something that you're going to be working towards, like in the back of your mind. If you keep setting yourself realistic goals day by day, then before you know it, you'll hopefully be reaching the big targets that you want to meet by the end of the year. So tip number 5 would be to stay hydrated. It is surprising how tiring photographing a wedding can be, especially doing a full day. That can be 8 hours plus of solid photography. You'll know beforehand if you're going to be fed or if you need to bring your own food. But even so, just make sure you do bring some water and some snacks with you, because it will keep you going through the whole day. And especially after photographing a wedding, if you've got a long drive to do, you want to make sure you do have some snacks, because it can be a long and tiring drive back home. So tip number 6 would be to anticipate your shots. So a lot of the time during the wedding ceremony and the reception, there'll be things that are happening and you want to make sure that you anticipate them before they happen, otherwise you're just not going to get the shot. So by photographing more and more weddings, you're going to get used to the process. It's also really important to send an email to your client and ask them what's going to happen and when. So obviously you know what time the ceremony is, the reception, where you need to be. By knowing these key details, you're going to be a lot better at anticipating the shots and what's going to be happening during the wedding ceremony and afterwards. Tip number 7 will be to prepare. Now what I mean by this is all of your equipment, your clothing, your food that you're going to bring with you, you need to make sure that's all prepared at least the night before. What you don't want to be doing is waking up in the morning and be stressing because your batteries need charging or your SD cards need formatting. You want to be waking up with a clear mindset and to know that everything is all ready and prepared, and that's not something you need to worry about. You don't want to be feeling anxious or stressed before a wedding, because that's only going to rub off on how you interact with the guests and how you take your photographs, and then evidently that's going to be in the photos themselves. A lot of the time during a wedding, things will happen that you don't expect, and that's only going to build up and build up. So by preparing everything the night before, everything's going to run a lot more smoothly on the wedding day, especially if you've got to wake up early or if you've got a long drive ahead of you. You don't want to have that on your mind. So by preparing this way for your wedding, you're going to have a much better mindset for the wedding day itself. So tip number 8 will be to adapt, and what I mean by this is not only adapting to the environment and the setting that you're in, but also the actual settings on the camera. If you're going from a dark ceremony and you want to capture the moment that the couple walk out of the venue, obviously it's going to be a lot lighter, and you may only get a few seconds to change that on your dial. I'll always be using a manual setting on my camera. Now this is something that you may want to do, whatever works best for you. Now I'd only recommend using a manual setting if you can change it quickly and you're good with lighting. So if you're not confident on using the manual setting, I'd recommend just going out and going into different lighting environments and seeing how quickly you can change that. You want to make sure that you can implement that onto your weddings as well. So by improving your confidence on the manual setting or any other setting, you're going to be a lot better at not only capturing the photographs but anticipating what settings you're going to need. So you can do this by taking a look around the venue and seeing what the lighting's like, whether that be in the building, outside. As long as you know what the lighting's like in each of those rooms, then you can quickly change the settings on your camera. It's not always going to be exact. Sometimes you'll have to take 1, maybe 2 photographs and then you'll have it locked in, but it's just about improving and building your confidence on how you adapt to certain settings. So tip number 9 would be to under-promise and over-deliver. What I mean by this would be more so after the wedding has been finalised and you've got all your photos. So if you've said to them that you're going to be supplying 100 photos, why not give them 150? If you've got a 2 weeks delivery date for the album, why not get it done in a week? So by under-promising what you're selling them, they're going to have the expectations that they're going to receive their wedding album in a couple of weeks' time. They're going to get 100 photographs. And by over-delivering, that gives them something to leave a nice review on, to give you good feedback and to recommend you to other people. And you're never going to get a wedding client who will be annoyed that you've sent them the photographs early or sent them more that you've asked for. They're only going to be nothing but appreciative for that, and so they're going to give you a good review, and you'll hopefully get some more weddings from that review in the future. And the one key benefit to this tip is that if you can't over deliver, then you've still met the target and the expectations that you've set of yourself, so they can only be happy with the photos they receive and the time frame that they receive them in, and you're still likely to get a review from that as well. Now tip number 10 is a pretty straightforward one. It's just to import all your footage as soon as you get home. So by importing your photos straight away, as soon as you get back from a wedding, you're going to keep that energy going, and you'll wake up in the morning feeling fresh, and your photos will be there to edit straight away for you. There's no waiting around, and you can just crack on to editing those photos, getting them sent straight out to the couple as soon as you can. And then going back to the tip I gave earlier, that's going to help you to over-deliver on the promises you made, and this can only lead to positive reviews and a positive outcome for you as well. So tip number 11 would be to have a clear structure. So that would be before and after a wedding, and what I mean by that is if someone were to reach out to you today and ask, can you photograph our wedding on such and such date, would you have a clear path to turn that lead into an actual wedding? And after the wedding as well, do you have a clear structure on how you get those photos sent to them and the time frame that you're going to need to get everything done by? Especially if you have another full-time or part-time job, do you actually have enough time in the day to edit these photos and get them uploaded? This could literally be dependent on the Wi-Fi that you use, how much time you have, and how many weddings you photographed before. Even just by writing it down on a blank sheet of paper and giving yourself a clear structure and a clear path to the outcome of gaining a wedding and a review, and hopefully more in the future, it's just going to help you a lot more. You're not going to be going back and forth with emails and trying to figure stuff out as you go. You already know the steps that you take in order to get that wedding, so that is a very important tip for you to take on. Now tip number 12 would be to make sure that your website and your Instagram, all that stuff is easy to navigate and easy for the couple to contact you. Now what you don't want to be doing is having a website where it makes it difficult for them to reach out to you. You want to make this process nice and easy, because that is the first thing that happens before you get your wedding. So as soon as they've contacted you, whether that be through email or messenger, you'll have a clear structure from the tip before to turn that conversion into an actual wedding. It's also helpful to have a little pop-up on your website to promote them to contact you and to give them incentives to contact you as well. So number 12 is probably one of the easiest tips to do. It's just a few changes you may need to make. Also having an email address that relates to your business. So mine is charlie@allenphotography.co.uk. Now if your email is completely different to your website, you can use your domain name, so that will work a lot better than maybe your personal email address. So by just making those few changes, a couple will feel a lot more confident and will find it a lot easier to contact you about a wedding. It's only going to be beneficial for you in the future. A lot of the time couples may only spend a few seconds on your Instagram or your Facebook. The first thing they want to see is a way that they can reach out to you. So the best way to find out if you are easy to contact will be to pretend that you're a client who wants a wedding and to type in your Instagram and your website and to see how long it takes to actually find that email or that phone number. If it's difficult in any way, shape or form, or if there's extra buttons that you need to click to get there, then I'd recommend making those small changes because they will pay off in the future. So tip number 13 would be reviews. Now this is something that you can control in a certain aspect, but you also can't. So you can promote your couple to give you a review, you can ask them nicely, send them a nice email, and you could also offer a discount to a future wedding if they were to leave a review, something like that. But you can't actually make them leave a review for you. First of all, you want to figure out the best way that they can leave a review for you. So if a lot of your business is on Facebook, then you want to direct them straight to Facebook to make a review there. That's the most important thing that they could do for you. By all means, include a link to your Google, any of the website that you use, because if you have photographed a wedding and they are really happy with the outcome of the photos, then it's only going to take them a few minutes to leave a review on those certain areas. Now another thing you can do with your review is take it and put it on your website, put it on your Instagram stories, highlights. So by leaving reviews and testimonials on your website and your social media, it's essentially the same as if you were to buy a product from Amazon, for example. The first thing you're going to do is look at the product, so that will essentially be your photos of weddings, and then look at the reviews. So with this you can tailor the reviews, so you can put your best ones first, or the most recent ones first, so they know that what you're doing is current. It's going to be something that they are probably going to read through, at least most of them, to make sure that they are picking out the right person to photograph their wedding. Before the reviews, they've only got your word, and they can't go by your word if they don't know you yet. So by going off other reviews and other weddings that you photographed in the past, they'll be a lot more likely to choose you as their wedding photographer. So tip number 14 would be to enjoy yourself and to also back yourself as well. So what I mean by this is, in terms of enjoying yourself at a wedding, you don't want to be a ball of anxiousness, because that is only going to make things worse, and it's going to spread to the quality of your photos and not only how you enjoy the day but how other guests enjoy the day as well. By just relaxing yourself, listening to nice music on the way there, or just trying to chill out as much as possible, it's going to help you to build a rapport with the couple, to interact with guests a lot more as well. And what's important about this is that every guest who is at a wedding could quite easily be another wedding that you'll photograph in the future. And this has happened to me quite a few times. So guests at a wedding that I've been to in the past, they've reached out to me and said, oh, you photographed so-and-so's wedding, would you be able to do ours? And if it is the first wedding that you photographed, whether that be tomorrow, next week or next month, then by watching videos like this and gaining tips and insights from other photographers, then it is only going to help you improve the photography and also improve how you photograph the wedding and how you feel about it after. And also what I mean by backing yourself is to look on other weddings you've captured and look at the best photograph and say to yourself that I'm going to take good photos and it's going to go smoothly and it's going to go fine. Now if this is your first wedding, then look back on other photos you've done, whether that be portraits or street photography, literally anything you've done and that you are proud of. Look back at those photos and use that energy and use that passion for photography and implement it in the first wedding that you capture. And the final tip would be to get inspiration and to feel inspired. It is important to look at other photographers in your area or some of the best photographers in the UK and see what they do, look at the sort of photographs that they take and how they do it, and try and implement that into your wedding. What you don't want to be doing is looking at all the content that's ever been made on wedding photography and just overcomplicating things. But by all means, look at a couple of photographers, see what they do, look at the photographs they take, and try and implement bits of that into your work. Obviously, you want to make sure that you've got your own sort of niche and got your own style of photography, but you're not going to have that before you photographed at least sort of 10 weddings plus. By feeling inspired from other people's work, you can use that to create some really lovely photography and to hopefully inspire other people in the future. And that's it. I hope you enjoyed my tips on wedding photography. I'm sure a lot of these can be implemented in freelance photography, but if it is your first wedding, then good luck with photographing it. Let me know how it went in the comments below. Hope you all enjoyed this video. Let me know what you'd like to see in the future. Make sure you like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.